Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast, brought to you by the Learning Love Foundation, helping people transform how they love, live, and lead. I'm your host, Dr. Mark A. Hicks, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is learn how to apply that answer to all the questions we have in life, and we have a few. There's a lot of things in life that cause us to struggle, and we need to work our way through those things and build the kind of healthy relationships that we want. Love is that answer. We just have to learn how to apply it. And that's what we do here at the Learning Love Podcast. We look at the situations of life and we explore how we can address these things of life. And today, we're going to talk about a tough one. We're going to look at what to do when you adamantly disagree. This can be with a family member. This can be with a friend. This can be with coworkers. It can be in society. We can apply this to everything because you might have noticed we have a few disagreements going on in the American culture. We have a few disagreements going on in the world around us, but the same principles apply. The same thing applies whether we want to overcome the outrage that we see throughout our society and these intense disagreements that we have and even hatred that we see at times. Or do we want to apply this to our workplaces? Do we want to apply it to our neighborhoods, our friendships, and especially in our families? The same principles apply throughout. When we learn how to apply the principles of love and relationships, they can apply throughout. So we want to fix our family, you want to fix society, you want to fix the world, same principles. And today, we're going to talk about what we do when we really intensely disagree. We adamantly disagree. This is not some casual thing of, okay, fine, you have your opinion, I have mine. But we really just disagree with how somebody's handling something, how they're acting, what's going on. So what do we do in those circumstances? Well, I'm going to tell you a few things that you can do today that can help you have a positive outcome, positive movement in your relationship, even when you have these intense disagreements. And the first thing you need to do is give up the mentality that this is a zero-sum game. This is what we play throughout society, and it's infiltrated our workplaces, our neighborhoods, and our families. Our society teaches a zero-sum game. That means in order for me to win, you have to lose. There is a pie, and if I want more of that pie, you have to have less of it. And not only do you have to lose, but you really have to know that you have lost and accept that you have lost. And that's the kicker. A person can be wrong, and you can even get your way sometimes. You may even win the fight somehow, but very rarely does someone just walk away or just accept defeat. That doesn't tend to happen very easily. Let's put this on a political scale, for instance. If a Democrat wins an election, do the Republicans all just keep quiet? No. They still have their morals, their standards, their beliefs, and they're going to fight for those. Same thing on the other side. When a Republican wins, do the Democrats go away quietly? No. Do they just go along with the program? No, because they still have their morals, their standards, their beliefs, and they're going to fight for those. When we make it a zero-sum game that I have to win and you have to lose, the loser's not just going to go away. People still have their standards, their beliefs. When we make it that zero-sum game, we're fighting a fight that we cannot win. People are always going to hold to their beliefs, and they're not just going to accept and roll over and just decide, okay, fine, you're right, I'm wrong, and let's just move on our way. That can happen if you really are dealing with facts, but that's very rarely the case once you get into an emotional fight. Once you get into the intensity of it and adamantly disagreeing, it becomes about more than just who has the most facts on their side. It becomes an emotional fight that people see their own well-being involved in this. And to lose means that my well-being is not going to be in good shape in this family or in this workplace or in this neighborhood or in this society. The reality is there are very few zero-sum games in life. Okay, we don't all have to win and have someone else lose. There are ways to build win-win situations. There are ways to do that. There are ways to compromise. I know that becomes a dirty word in a lot of people's minds, but it still can be a healthy part of relationships. We can compromise. We can give and take. The fact is, no one has a monopoly on the truth. And this is the problem with the zero-sum mentality. We have this idea that I'm 100% right and you're 100% wrong, and that is almost never the case. The fact that someone has a strongly held opinion usually means they have at least some facts on their side or some evidence that they're looking at. Now, they may be ignoring a whole mountain of evidence in addition to that. They may have 1 or 2% of the truth that they are holding on to very tightly and ignoring 98% of the truth. But for someone to have a tightly held opinion, a strongly held opinion, there's usually something behind it. There's usually some strong motivation that they are going to hold to with some measure of evidence. And so part of it is understanding that while I may believe that I am right, I may not be totally right. And we might be able to find some areas that we are both wrong, find some areas of compromise, find some areas to work together. And so it's not a zero-sum game. It is not a win and lose mentality. It's a much better idea to understand that we can find ways to both win. And if we don't do that, then we're both probably going to lose. Because when we get into these zero-sum mentalities and we have to destroy our opponent, that usually kills the relationship. I don't know that too many families survive once you get into too many of these things, that I'm going to destroy my spouse, my child, my brother, my sister in order to win this fight. I am going to cripple them emotionally in order to get what I want. Those relationships really aren't going to survive. And so this zero-sum mentality becomes a lose-lose mentality, that we're both going to lose ultimately because we're not going to sustain a healthy relationship. So give up this zero-sum thing and start looking for how we can both win, how we can find a path forward where both people can feel basically good about the direction we're going. There are usually at least some ways of finding that. One of the ways to do that, and the second important thing to do, the first is to give up that zero-sum mentality. The second thing, and it's probably the hardest thing, I'm going to tell you up front, it's the hardest thing to do, and that is to listen. Now, that gets said a lot, particularly by people like me, the psychological types that are teaching these things. We throw that word around. We say, well, you need to learn to listen. There needs to be active listening. And that becomes one of those buzzwords we use in psychology and counseling. There's a problem with that, though. And most people instinctively know the problem, even if they can't articulate it. The reality is our brains are there to protect us. And there is an area of the brain that fires off when there is a physical threat that may harm us physically, that we may be injured somehow or even killed. Then there's an area of the brain that fires off to protect us, which causes us to react so that we can protect ourselves from that physical harm. There's also an area of the brain that fires off when there's an emotional threat. We may not be in physical harm, but someone is threatening something that is emotionally dear to us, that they are saying things or doing things that are offensive to us, that cause us emotional distress. When we feel that emotional distress, we feel offended, we feel emotionally harmed somehow, there is an area of the brain that fires off to protect us. Here's the kicker. It's the same area of the brain. The brain doesn't make a strong distinction between physical threats and emotional threats. Now, intellectually, we can know the difference, obviously. We can think through that. But instinctively, it's the same area of the brain. So, when the psychological types like me, the counseling types say, we need to learn to listen. The problem with that is, when we are listening, if we're not careful, we're just going to get defensive. We're going to get defensive because people are going to say things that we don't like to hear. They say things that are offensive to us, things that are emotionally distressing to us, because how do they come up with these crazy opinions and how do they possibly think the way they do? And we start wondering, if I accept their way of life, I'm going to lose mine, going back to that zero-sum mentality. And we start getting really defensive. Listening is hard. Here's what we need to do. We do have the capability as human beings for higher levels of thought. We don't just have to have knee-jerk reactions. We don't have to react instinctively. When we are walking through the ancient terrain and there's saber-toothed tigers ready to jump out and devour us, it's a good idea to have a basic instinct of protection. You know what? We're past that. We don't usually find ourselves out in the middle of a place where a wild animal might attack us. Now, there's still places in the world, and there's still places we might need to protect ourselves. There can be danger within our cities, within our towns. There might be a dangerous area that we need to be on guard. But for the most part, most of us are safe most of the time. And so we don't have to always react with our instincts. We can have higher levels of thought. When we understand this is how our brain works, our brains are going to fire off when somebody says something offensive, but we don't have to react like that. We can understand that's just my usual instinct to be defensive because I'm hearing something I don't like to hear. But we don't have to react like that. That's where listening really can be beneficial because it does two things. When someone feels heard, they tend to calm down. One of the frustrations in life is that we have these strongly held opinions and no one will listen to us because they just want to tell us their opinion. When we have the courage to actually listen to someone and hear what they have to say, even if we disagree with it, they tend to calm down. Now, some people don't, but a lot of people do. A lot of people will tend to calm down when you really listen to them. Secondly, you might find some things about them that you didn't know. You might realize their motivation. Okay, so let's say, for instance, somebody's giving you an opinion and they're being really defensive and they're being really harsh, but you begin to hear when you really listen that what's motivating that is they're afraid. They're scared. For whatever reason, they are upset because they're afraid that something bad's going to happen to them. And they have to defend themselves. And so the issue then doesn't become showing them how wrong they are, but showing them that they're safe, trying to reassure them that you may disagree with them, but you're not looking to bring harm to them. That we might not agree, but you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to defeat me because I'm not looking to harm you. I just don't necessarily agree with what you're saying. I have another set of facts that I'm looking at, another set of circumstances I'm looking at, and I have a different opinion, and we have different conclusions. But if you start to pick up that that person is really motivated by fear, and very often when we are adamantly disagreeing with somebody, we are motivated by fear. Again, we're going back to that zero-sum game where we believe if they win, we lose. And so there's a lot of fear motivated behind these disagreements. When we can get past that and assure that we are having a disagreement, but we're not looking to destroy you, that we can disagree on things and we can discuss things, but I'm not looking to hurt you. When we listen to someone and hear their motivation, we might find a way to actually have a conversation and get past some of the fears and some of the motivations that drive a lot of these things. So get past the zero-sum idea. This mentality doesn't really exist. If we hold on to that, we're both going to lose. Learn to listen, which means we have to have higher levels of thinking beyond our natural instincts to be defensive anytime somebody says something we don't like. We have to get past that, work on a higher level of humanity, and actually listen. Then, one of the things that we can do, particularly when we're listening to each other and we're starting to learn the motivations and we're starting to learn sort of what makes people tick, and we get to really kind of get to know each other. And if you're in a family or friendships, probably you're already there. Find third spaces. And what I mean by that is find that space where you can operate together outside that conflict. Okay, you may never agree on something. There may be a gulf between you that will never fully be bridged because you're just so different in that area. But if you want a relationship with that person, if that person means something to you, find a third area. Find a place that you can work together that is different than this disagreement. For example, I have a friend who is on the other political spectrum than me. I have strongly held political opinions. He has strongly held political opinions. We do not agree at all. And we've discussed it at times, and we've had pretty good discussions, and we've listened to each other. We have a good relationship, and we've talked through some of these political differences. We've never agreed with each other on it, but we've discussed it, and we've listened to each other. But we have another area. We work together on some projects. And when we're working on these projects, we're the best of friends. We don't have to let the disagreement on politics keep us from being friends in this third area. We may never agree on the political stuff, but we can still talk about it. And one reason we can still talk about it is we have a third area. We have another area, not with me on one side and him on the other, but together working on a completely separate project that has nothing to do with that discussion. When we work on our projects together, we're the best of friends. And that helps us when we do have conversations on politics. It helps us remember that we are actually friends. We just disagree a lot. But that's okay. We can still see each other as humans and as friends. And having that third space, not with me on one side, him on the other, but place that we're actually together, working on projects together, brings us together as people, brings us together as friends, and it helps us bridge that gap, and it helps us communicate when we do talk about something that we're never going to agree on. This is a way to sustain friendships. It's a way to sustain relationships that mean something to us. Find those third areas. Find things you enjoy doing together. Whenever you find yourself in a fight with your spouse and you just can't seem to get past it, sometimes you need to find a third area. Find some other thing that you can put this aside for a little while and go back to what brought you together to start with. Do some fun things. Do some date stuff. Do some dating. Do some fun things that you enjoy in your relationship. Work on projects together, whatever it is, and find ways of being together as family, as people who love each other. And that helps bridge that gap on things you may really never agree on, but it does help to communicate when you do talk about those things. And finally, another difficult one, but one that will help you a lot. When you're dealing with people in society that you adamantly disagree with at work, in your neighborhood, or even in your family, practice grace. And I would even go so far as to say, practice grace aggressively. Practice compassion aggressively. Give grace where people don't deserve it. Give compassion to people that are just plain wrong. I understand people have the right to be wrong. They just do. We're human beings. We're going to be wrong sometimes. They have that right. Show compassion, show grace, and show it aggressively. Go out of your way to show grace and to be graceful and to be compassionate to people that are just plain wrong. And you know they're wrong, and that's okay. You can show compassion to them anyway. Aggressively showing grace, aggressively showing compassion changes the tone. It gets us out of that instinctual mentality of how can I protect myself? It gets us out of this win-lose, zero-sum mentality of how can I defeat you so that I can win and you lose. Default back to compassion, to grace, and do it aggressively. That takes some courage. That takes some practice. That takes some thought. Again, we're going back to that higher levels of thinking. One of the reasons why we struggle in relationships in every area of life sometimes is because we just react with our instincts. And our instincts are to protect ourselves and to win, to make sure that person loses, they are defeated, so that I win, so that I protect myself. That's not helping us. It's not helping us build healthy families, not helping us build friendships, workplaces, communities, or society. We need to have a higher level of thought where we really listen, where we find those third spaces, places we can cooperate, even if we don't disagree, even if we don't agree in some other areas. And we need to aggressively practice grace and compassion, because sometimes people are just going to be plain wrong, and that's okay. They can still be our friends, still be our community members. They can still be our coworkers. They can still be our family, and we can still be one society together. It is possible to overcome these disagreements and to go on to good, healthy relationships. But we can't just do it instinctively. We have to think through it and practice art of love. And that's my thoughts today as we are working to build the healthy, happy, thriving relationships that we all need in our life. As always, I hope you'll go to my website, markahicks.com. You can find a lot of things there, including easy links to buy my book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters, and Healthy Relationships That Last. I want to thank all the folks at the Learning Love Foundation who bring this message to you each week. You can find more about that organization at learninglovefoundation.com. Of course, I want to thank my producer, Abby Graves, of all her great work, Abby Graves Production. And I want to thank all of you for joining me today and listening to the Learning Love Podcast. Love well, everyone.